Morning teachers, today I, Divyansh Katyal and my fellow companions, Dharsh, Rishabh, Chirag and Vishesh are going to explain the very important chapter of Indian economics, that is chapter 2, Goals of Planning, under the head of Art Integration Project. Today we see India has flourished in many sectors and will soon going to become a $5 trillion company. But do we know that how India has been able to achieve this? Firstly, to achieve this, we need some plans. A plan generally spells out how the resources of a nation should be put to use in India. The plans are generally of 5 years, and there are some goals that need to be achieved through these plans. And the goals that India wanted to achieve through these plans were first, growth. Growth. It means the country's capacity to produce goods and services. And the true indicator of economic growth is GDP. GDP is mainly there from the contribution made by the different sectors of the economy, mainly the agriculture sector, service sector and the industrial sector. And the contribution made by each of these sectors makes up the sectoral composition of the economy. And the second goal was modernization. If we want to increase the production of goods and services, we mainly need to adopt a new technology. And modernization means the adoption of new technology, and it does not only mean the adoption of new technology but also the changes in the social outlook, such as the recognition that women should have same right as men. And the third goal that India wanted to achieve was self-reliance. For an economy to grow and modernize, it mainly needs to resort to its own resources. In the first 5-year plans was given main importance to self-reliance. Self-reliance means avoiding the import of those goods which could be produced in the country itself. And this step was considered a necessity because to reduce our dependence on foreign goods, especially food. And the last goal was equity. It means that inequality in the distribution of wealth should be reduced, so that the poor section of the economy should enjoy the benefits of economic prosperity, same as the richer section of the society. And these are the 4 goals that India wanted to achieve through its 5-year plans. And now I will tell you about the condition or the situation of the agriculture sector between 1950 to 1990. Firstly, India was mainly dependent on monsoon. If the monsoon was good, then the production was good. But if the production was less, if the monsoon was less, then the production was also less. It was because the irrigation facilities in India are quite adequate. And the second was disguised unemployment. Disguised unemployment refers to a situation or condition when more people are engaged in work than what is needed. It can be found in many parts of India. And the last was traditional method of production in India. The methods of production along with the equipment are very traditional. It is mainly due to the poverty and illiteracy of people. And there are also some conflicts between landlords and tenants. Now my fellow companion Vishesh will come and will explain further.
Hello everyone, I am Vishesh Sharma and now I will talk about the development of agriculture sector from 1950 to 1990. There were major factors that resulted in the development of agriculture sector. The major 2 are land reforms and green revolution. Land reforms refers to the change in the ownership of the land holdings. These land reforms are abolition of intermediaries and land ceiling. So abolition of intermediaries means several steps were taken to abolish the intermediaries and to make the tillers of the land the owners of the land. This ownership provides incentives to the tillers of the land to make investments in making new improvements. Second, land ceiling. Land ceiling refers to fixing the maximum size of the land ownership, so that the purpose of this is to reduce the concentration of land ownership in a few hands and to promote the equality in agriculture sector. So now we'll talk about green revolution. Green revolution refers to the large increase in the production of food grains, especially by making the use of high yielding variety of seeds or HYV seeds, or we can say the miracle seeds, especially for wheat and rice. So why there was a need for green revolution? we all know that at the time of independence, almost 75% of India's population were mainly dependent on agriculture. At that time, the productivity of agriculture was very low due to obsolete technologies and lack of infrastructure problems. So now, and we all know that the agriculture of India was mainly dependent on monsoon. So if the monsoon fell short, the farmers would be in big trouble, and if the monsoon went good, there will be a good amount of production of food, grains, and other commodities. So now we'll talk about the benefits of green revolution. Majorly, there are 4 benefits of green revolution. Number 1, increase in marketed surplus. Second, decrease in price of grains. Third, buffer stock. And fourth, self-sufficiency in food grains. Number 1, increase in marketed surplus. The production of food grains and other commodities by farmers are sold in a market, and this portion that is sold is called marketed surplus. The second, decrease in price of grains. The huge amount of production of the food grains and other commodities resulted in less demand and more supply, automatically resulted in decrease in the price of grains, which enhances the low income groups that spend a huge proportion of their income on food grains. It benefited them. Third, buffer stock. The green revolution enabled the government to stock the food grains in a huge amount to help the country in further years. Fourth, self-sufficiency in food grains. You all know that there are many advantages and disadvantages of green revolution, but hey, this advantage is one of the biggest advantages that green revolution has provided India. Self-sufficiency in food grains. Nowadays, production of food grains and other commodities are mainly done in India. So now we no longer are dependent on America or any other nations for our food grains or self-sufficiency. So that is all that I have come to explain to you. So now my fellow companion Daksh will come will come and explain you further.
My name is Daksh Dua, and I am going to explain about subsidies. Subsidies means availing some important inputs to farmer at a concessional rate, which are very lower than market rate. Now, the points which are in favor of subsidies. First, incentives to farmer. It is necessary to use subsidies to provide incentive for adoption of new technology like HYV seeds for farmers in general and for poor farmers in particular. New technology is always seen as a risk in agricultural business. Hence subsidies should be used so that we can encourage farmer to adopt these new technology. Now, second is purchasing unit. We can help farmer by purchasing these agricultural units by providing them subsidies, because there are many small and poor farmers which cannot afford them. Third comes the equity. If subsidies are abolished, inequality between rich and poor farmers. Some also say that subsidies are only affecting large fertilizers industry and large farmers. But they didn't mean that subsidies should be abolished. They mean that corrective steps should be taken so that poor farmers also enjoy their benefit. Now we are going to talk about the against point or the disadvantages of subsidies which other people say. Some people say that once new technology is introduced and is found profitable and is widely accepted, they should abolish subsidies. They mean that subsidies are meant to adopt these technology, and they should be abolished now. Second, some also believe that subsidies are not used correctly because they are not benefiting the targeted group, that is small farmers. So they should be abolished because they are becoming a burden on government's finance. Hence, from these pros and cons, we can say that subsidies are very useful to farmers, but they are also becoming burden. But they are becoming a burden on government scarce finance. So the right way is not to abolish them, but to take corrective measures so that poor people also get benefited from the subsidies. Now my fellow companion Chirag will come and explain further.
Hello everyone, my name is Chirag Singha and I will explain the topic Industrial Policy Resolution 1956. Industrial Policy Resolution is the authority issued by the government to permit organization and institution for starting an industry or certain functions in accordance with the goals of state controlling the commanding heights of the economy. Industrial Policy Resolution 1956 was adopted. The resolution was classified in three categories. The first category consists of industry which were owned by the state government. The second category consists of industries in which private sector could supplement the efforts with state sector, with states taking the sole responsibility of starting new units. The third category consists of industries which were owned by private sectors. And now we will discuss the following ways in which the industries were restricted under IPR 1956. First, the industrial sector was controlled in such a way through a system of licensing. No new industry was allowed. No new industry was allowed under
Chart.
unless a license was obtained from the government. This policy was used for promoting industries in backward areas. Even an existing industry was required license for expansion of output or diversifying output. Now, certain industries were given certain concessions like tax benefits and electricity at a lower tariff.
Chart.
Now, we will study about small-scale industry that were promoted by the government in the 1950s. In 1955, the Village and the Small-Scale Industry Committee, also known as Scarve Committee, also noted to the possibility of promoting the rural development. The small-scale industries is defined with the difference of maximum investment allowed on asset of a unit. The investment changes over period. In 1950, the investment was rupees 5 lakh, and at the present time, it's rupees 1 crore. It is believed that small-scale industries are more labor-intensive. They employ more labor than the large-scale industries. Small-scale industries are not capable of competing with the big-scale industries, so they need to be shielded from big firms. Now we will discuss about the benefits that are given to the small-scale industries. First, the production of products that were specifically reserved for the SSI. Second, they were given certain concessions like bank loan at lower interest rate and low excise duty. And now, my friend Rishabh will come and will end the chapter.
Start.
Now, my name is Rishabh and now I will explain trade policy of import substitution. Trade policy of import substitution is also known as inward-looking trade strategy. It was necessary so that more emphasis is done on domestic production and external resistance was avoided. For this, government used tariff and quota policy. Under tariff policy, taxes were imposed on imports done by the domestic producer so that they become expensive and were discouraged. Under quota policy, maximum limit was imposed on the imports done by the domestic producer. Why was this policy necessary? First, to achieve self-reliance, and second, to save and increase the foreign exchange reserves of the country. Now, critical appraisal of goals of planning. First, positives. Industries became far more diversified as compared to they were at the time of independence, as now they included engineering and consumer goods. Second, Green Revolution helped India achieve self-sufficiency in the production of food grains and promoted modernization of agriculture. Third, land reforms abolished zamindari system. Fourth, development of SSI led to help people to start businesses with less capital. And last, increase in the proportion of GDP of industrial sector from 11.8% in 1950 to 51 to 24.6% in 1990 to 91. Now, as every coin has two sides, the second side of goals of planning, that is the negatives. First, poor performance of public sector. Poor performance of public sector led to huge losses. Second, public sector monopoly over non-essential areas led to inefficiency and wastage of precious funds. Third, due to inward-looking trade strategy, India was not able to build a strong export sector. Fourth, as domestic producer was protected from foreign competition, so there was no incentive with him to increase the quality of product. And last, excessive government intervention, due to which development of such industries like entrepreneurship decreased. I hope you understand this chapter, and I apologize for any inconvenience that was caused between the video. It is our first time. Thank you.